So far, we've made checks and balances. We've created Congress with the House of Representatives and the Senate. They've decided about whether to count slaves towards population or not. And now it's time to decide how are they going to elect the president. So the founding fathers needed a way to elect the president that was going to be the most efficient. And it seems easy for everyone just to vote and then count all those votes up. But they knew early on that certain states were going to have more population than others just because of the dynamic of that state. At this time, Virginia had a high population because it was a really good area to grow things. It was where Jamestown was. It was very, it had a lot of older cities. So the founding fathers were not dumb. They knew projecting further out that there were going to be many states that would just have a lot more population. And they didn't want those states to be the ones to determine who was going to be elected for president, because then you'd have a very few states out of the entire United States of America making very, very difficult decisions. So what they decided to do is create what's called an electoral college, and not like a college that you go to school to. There's nothing to do with that. And so each state gets a particular number of votes. So no matter what, no matter how many people are in that state, like the number of votes are capped. And I'll show you the map in just a second. So the highest total possible is 538. So we get that number because there are 100 senators, because we have 50 states in the United States, and each state gets 2 senators. So 50 times 2 is 100. And we have 435 House of Representatives. And that's divided up amongst the states based on a census. We do a census every 10 years. And when we do the census, then we judge like how many people are going to go to each state, like how many votes are going to be or how many representatives are going to be represented in that state. And then Washington, D.C., because it's not a state, for the longest time, they didn't get a say-so on the presidency. So the 23rd Amendment changed that, and Washington, D.C. gets 3 electoral votes. So 100 senators plus 435 House Representatives plus 3 electoral votes for D.C. equals 538. Well, you need 270 to win. Excuse me. So here's a presidential election map, and this is going to be like the map for 2016. So right now this is a blank map. So if you look at North Carolina, we'll zoom in just a little bit. So it says 15. So North Carolina gets 15 votes. So that means we have 13 House of Representatives and we have 2 senators. Because 13 plus 2 is 15. So you can pick any state and subtract 2, like New York. Subtract 2, they have 27 House Representatives. North Dakota, they have 3. So subtract 2, they have 1 House Representative. So those 2 groups of people that are making federal laws for the United States, North Dakota only has 1 person in the chamber, that's the House of Representatives. And that's because their population is very small. So if you look at some of the bigger states, like California has the most with 55. Texas is not far behind with 38. New York has quite a few. And so at the top here, you see the 538 is the total. So what you can do with this website, and it's available for you guys. You can go and play on the website as well. And I encourage you to do so, actually. It'll help you kind of understand the Electoral College a little better. So if we click on North Carolina, so I just made it red. So red is for Republican. It's easy to remember because R is for Republican and R is for red. So let's say that North Carolina goes Republican. That means that more people in North Carolina voted for whoever the Republican candidate is. So all 15 states would go to that Republican candidate. But let's say that Texas votes blue, California votes blue. Excuse me. We'll just pick a couple states here that have quite a few population. And so you see the numbers. I'm trying to get it to 270 with the fewest states possible. Here's Washington. And Georgia's got quite a few. If we turn North Carolina to a blue state, let's just see what happens. All right, Missouri's got quite a few. Oh, Ohio has a lot. Ooh, Florida has a lot. Okay, so see, we're already at 278. So just with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, just with 12 states, a president could actually win. So that would give you an idea of, and so you would not have to have all the states to win, but you do have to have a considerable number. And because it's based on population as to how many electoral votes you have, it's all over the place, and like as far as all over the map. And traditionally, not all the time, but traditionally, the Northeast generally votes the same. The South generally votes the same. The Midwest is kind of a mix, and the Pacific Coast generally votes the same. So we can look at actually like past maps. If we go, let's see here. Hmm. Past elections. Here we go. So if we look at past elections, so, and this will give you a good idea too. We won't go that far back. But the 2000 election, let's look at it. This one was a big deal. So the 2000 election, George W. Bush won the election by 271 electoral votes. He needed 270 to win, so he barely won this election. But if you look at the popular vote, Al Gore actually won the popular vote on that election. But looking at the map, see, George Bush kind of did what I was just talking about. And you can also kind of see the South usually votes Republican. Not all the time, but usually. The North usually votes Democrat. The Midwest is kind of a mix. And the Pacific Coast usually votes Democrat as well. And we'll talk more about that when we get into political parties later. But we can go back and look at another map here, like the 2008 election. So this is one of Obama's elections. He got 365 electoral votes. He also won the popular vote. And then you can kind of see that this map's all over the place. You'll start hearing people talk about what's called swing states. So North Carolina, you can see in this election voted Democrat. Now, when George Bush was running, they voted Republican. So there are certain states that kind of go. It really depends on the candidate. Like they're a swing state. They might swing Republican, they might swing Democrat. It just depends. And a lot of presidential candidates will do a lot of campaigning in those states to try to convince that state to swing one way or the other. So that gives you kind of a general idea of Electoral College. It's very interesting once you kind of understand how it works to be able to go and watch the predictions or make your own predictions as the new presidential election is coming closer and closer. I hope that helps.